collateral grows, unlock more liquidity, adjust your line anytime, and extend your term with a single click. And with 24/7 white glove support, you're never on your own. Arch Lending, simple tiers, public pricing, market-leading rates at every size. Check them out at archlending.com/debates. Again, it's archlending.com/debates. Use code debates to get 50 basis points off your APR on your crypto-backed loan today. Do you want to pay less in taxes and stack more Bitcoin? Of course you do. Well, by mining Bitcoin with Blockware, you can. Under Section 168K of the U.S. tax code, Bitcoin mining servers qualify for 100% bonus depreciation. This means every dollar you spend on miners, you can directly offset your income in a single year. And that's true for both business owners and W-2 earners. If you have $100,000 in ordinary income, you can purchase $100,000 of miners and potentially offset your tax liability entirely. Blockware's mining as a service does the heavy lifting. They secure the rigs, source low-cost power, and handle all the day-to-day maintenance. You stack Bitcoin every day while drastically shrinking your tax bill. Get started today at blockwaresolutions.com/debates. Again, that's blockwaresolution.com/debates. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cardone Debates. It is Tuesday, March 17th, 5 p.m. We're doing a traditional debate today. Dustin, how's it going?
Woo! Happy St. Patrick's Day!
Oh, it is St. Patrick's Day. Nice shirt.
I don't see any green. You have to get pinched.
You what?
You have to get pinched if you don't wear green.
Oh, shoot. Good thing no one's here to pinch me, so I'm fine.
I guess we'll let you off easy this time.
So
you're on notice for next year, Dana.
Yeah, we'll see. So you have a big background in tariffs, don't you? With all your work with the White House and, Trump. Yeah. Can you give us a background on tariffs?
I am incredibly excited about this topic, actually. Like, this is like new nerd Super Bowl for me. So much so that I spent all of the afternoon going through and refreshing myself on like all of the arguments. Did you know that our government, 85 to 95% of our government for the first half of this nation's existence, like all of the funding came through tariffs?
No, I did not know that.
Before there was a sales tax, before there was an income tax, we funded our government. We specifically raised our military and promoted the general welfare through tariffs, which is actually really fascinating. As a result, for the first, they divide tariffs into three categories. There's 1790. The Alexander Hamilton passed the first tariff act, I think it's 1790 or 1791. And then up until 1860, so basically the Civil War, where we funded our government specifically with tariffs. And then the next period tariffs became more of a tool of protectionism is how they determine it. It's very interesting. So we have this next period where tariffs are used in order to protect American sovereignty and support American business. So, and then William McKinley, and this is going to be really central to like my little spiel here. William McKinley, the president I think he took right at the turn of the century. So he's the president that saw us into the 1900s. His primary thing that he was known for is, as a congressman, he passed a tariff act, and then he promoted tariffs as a way to protect America. It also gets right to the heart of monetary policy. And then we enter into this new phase where our money and policy and foreign policy all goes to hell, and we get rid of tariffs as a way of funding government. We move to income taxes and other things that burden regular people. We also, in this time, we kind of abandoned tariffs for this idea of free trade. And it's interesting. I went back today and I was reading William McKinley's speeches from the 1890s. It is scary how much Donald Trump's economic policy is based on what was left unfinished. So William McKinley was assassinated at the start of his second term, and Teddy Roosevelt took over. And at the time, McKinley's plan for a second administration was all about reciprocal tariffs. Where have you heard that before? It's the heart of President Trump's economic and foreign policy. So what's really interesting, at the start of Trump's second term, he went back and renamed Mount Denali in Alaska back to Mount McKinley after President McKinley. And his architect of his economic tariff policy is an economist named Peter Navarro, somebody I've worked with closely many times over the years, including as part of the official COVID response. And the idea is actually pretty simple. Navarro gave a speech at the Council of Foreign Relations last year that speaks to tariffs being necessary for us to be able to switch away from American power being generated solely from the military and military interventionism and being the world's policeman to a tariff policy that shifts the power away from our military might and to our economic production and capacity and consumption. So tariffs are at the centerpiece of like Trump trying to shift us away, and tariffs bleeds over into monetary policy, into foreign policy, into military interventionism. And what's wild is because it was so central to everything with America in the beginning, every person was very knowledgeable, and like every presidential campaign, every contest, every congressional contest, they were all centered around these debates around tariffs. We don't even talk about tariffs anymore. And now Trump's bringing them back. And I think the debate today is going to be really good because we hear a lot of arguments about tariffs. I don't think people fully understand the scope of what they all mean. So super excited to dive into all of it. I think this is going to be a really fascinating, awesome debate. So that's the brief history lesson is we funded our government almost exclusively with tariffs up until 1860. From 1860 until the early 1900s, we had high tariffs that were used to generate and protect. Tariffs were essential to us building the Intercontinental Railroad and building the United States steel industry, among many other things. And other countries use tariffs as an economic weapon. So China in particular, China and India, because of their large populations, use tariffs to economically advantage the growth and construction of their manufacturing bases. So we're going to debate, is Trump's tariffs a good idea? Like, should we go back to the old system that really kind of fell apart with the assassination of President William McKinley in the early 1900s? Or is it a hidden tax that raises the cost of everything? What do you think?
I like it. Thank you, Dustin.
Well, hey, Dustin, great job on an extremely boring topic. I can see from the audience. The topic is such a draw. It is a magnetic force field of gravity pulling people in to want to know how my life changes because of tariffs.
That's the frustrating part, right? It really impact everything.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's
Dane, I can't hear you well. Why don't we bring in some brilliant people that know something about this subject, in addition to you two, of course. Okay? I mean, Roberto Rios we have in the house from the Pacific Northwest. Dana, you want to do the intro? Look at this guy with this cheesy smile. Huh?
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Everyone follow Roberto online. You follow us on
I think Gary.
Gary, you're the mole and you're echoing.
Go ahead, Robert.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Did you ask me something, Dana? Did you want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Introduce yourself and tell us what side you're taking. Unless Gary, you're upset about this topic choice, huh? Are we debating something else?
I will, to Gary's point on this, I actually think like we can make the Iranian stuff. I thought Joe Kent's resignation today, I think, is worth talking about. I would like to see us expand our topics to these really critical, hot button political issues, war issues, etc. I think tariffs is a part of that. It is a little wonkier. Maybe a transition from like usually we're all about monetary policy, Bitcoin, etc. So tariffs might be a good transition, but like
Hey, listen. I have somewhere I can go with it. I just think it's boring, and there's not a lot of people in the audience, which would suggest that they're more interested in listening to some guy with $12 a Bitcoin talk about the Bitcoin movement of $2,000. So, Roberto, why don't you introduce yourself so the audience knows who you are, where you're from, what your role is here?
Sure. So my name is Roberto Rios. I'm a macro and finance content creator. I have Twitter, Substack, and YouTube. I've also worked in the private equity space, specifically in fintech. And I'm taking the side for tariffs, for trade protectionism. And if we get into like a deeper discussion, especially about Iran, I think there's a lot of not only geopolitical and military implications, but also obviously financial implications of the war. And we can discuss not only how is Iran and how are other nations waging financial war, but how has the U.S. in the past waged financial war on its enemies? Because that is a very interesting thread to pull, and I'm sure it's much more relevant to what's happening right now.
Cool. Well, we're very happy to have you. He has a deep background to discuss any of these things, Gary. So if you want to change the topic, I'm sure that he'd be able to do that. Ben, we also have you. Can you please tell us about you as well and your perspective on this topic? What side are you taking?
Yeah, I'm also on Roberto's side as far as free trade and tariffs. I think free trade is basically a myth, but just for some quick background, like I spent some time in public accounting. I'm a recovering CPA, so I've been writing about finance and markets and different individual investment ideas, commodities, stuff like that for the last 3 years, and have a Substack and a podcast as well. So kind of focus on current events, geopolitics, anything else going on that I think is worth paying attention to. And there's obviously lots of stuff going on with Iran and Israel right now, and we're already kind of in the economic warfare stage of World War III, I think. So that opens up the whole can of worms as far as different topics that we can get into on tariffs and free trade and what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz and all that stuff. So it's definitely a lot of stuff going on right now.
Cool. You guys want to follow Ben as well? So,
Man, you're gonna make me take the screeching modern position of like, tariffs are bad. Killing me, Smalls. But I'll do it. I'll take one for the team.
I mean, I can lead off if you guys want. I think there's a lot of different places we could go, but I think if you want me to start, I can get into why I think there's kind of uneven playing field as far as the U.S. and China and all these things.
Okay, the 2 young guys against the 2 old guys. Let's roll.
All right. Sounds good.
Hey, you guys repost the room in the audience. Don't be a wanker, okay? Repost the room. There's not enough people in here. We ain't going to do this for 600 people. Come on. Bring it, okay? Sorry if Dana gave you the notice late, but you need to repost, get some people in the room. Let's have a good event. It's an hour of debate, and we get to make fun of 2 young guys we don't know. So this is how we embrace everyone that comes on this show.
Yeah, it's
all right, so you're going to have an opening statement. So you have a minute or 3 minutes for an opening. I say for this one, we do 1 minute.
1 minute.
I can make a minute work. So I think the biggest thing that people mix up with tariffs is they see, okay, we have to put tariffs on these different goods and it's going to make prices go up. And I think that it's a really short-sighted view. When you kind of look at the economic policies that China and Europe and other countries have in place. There's trade barriers, whether it's VAT taxes and subsidies for favored industries. And that's kind of how you end up with China having 70% market share in silver refining and basically a complete monopoly on rare earths refining. So when they kind of use those economic warfare advantages against places like the US that try and have a free trade or something close to it system, that's where you kind of get into these pickles where the US doesn't have the manufacturing base or the industrial base to make our own military technology or make our own industrial technology. So I think there's a lot of things that you can go back to and look at as far as the Gilded Age or German economics and some different things. But I think there's a lot of tariff pieces that are very important to kind of consider on how they're actually structured to actually have them work as you want them to work.
All right, time's up. Thank you so much. Who's next? Who wants to respond?
I guess I'll respond. So, all right, come on, you can do this, Dust. Put your head. Globalism is a good thing and necessary. The reason that we're able to expand and build peaceful relations all over the world forever is because we allow these other economies to flourish and grow based on their population size. Tariffs and isolationism is a thing that Hitler loved. And so if you love it, you are Hitler too. I think that was perfect. I don't even need a full minute.
Okay, you still have some time to spare. Wow, thanks, Dustin.
I would say,
just to let you know that when my time comes, I have a bigger one than you do.
I like that. I think the other way to frame tariffs, is not only from the economic perspective, but from the military perspective, right? A nation's sovereignty rests on its ability to defend itself and provide for itself. And if you do not have certain protections built in place, then your domestic industries can be outcompeted, because the idea that the world, lives on this equal playing field or level playing field is essentially a farce, right? Many third world countries will manipulate their currencies lower intentionally to gain an export boom. China has had a peg on their currency for over 30 years. The Japanese have kept a weak yen in order to boost trade surpluses with the United States. Almost every single country around the world engages in unfair trade practices. And if the US decides to play on this quote unquote level playing field just to get access to cheap Chinese goods, then we could see, and we have seen, the negative effects of the deindustrialization of the United States. So, for example, from 1950 to today, manufacturing share as a percent of GDP fell from 30% to under 10% today. So we've essentially lost the same amount of manufacturing base that France and Britain did during World War II, during the bombing campaigns by the Germans. So without shots being fired, America has been deindustrialized. And all of this has been an effect of these tariffs. And we're already seeing this come into play with the Iran war, right? We're starting to run out of munitions like the interceptor missiles or the THAAD and Patriot missile systems. Our boats are starting to run out of heavy shells if they were to use, like, for example, in Ukraine, where they are sending American shells to the front lines. The resupply ships are running out of the shells to give to the Ukrainians to fight against the Russians. Like, all these are signs that the U.S. has.
That's a good thing, right?
No, it's not a good thing.
It'd be a great thing if we ran out of shit to give people that fight wars and kill people, dude. Listen, you guys talk about that every other country plays with their currency, but you don't also say, hey, we jack with the financial ledger more than any country on planet Earth. Tariffs are a bully act, pure bully act. You do not have a country that doesn't have a majority position on planet Earth that can't pull this lever. It's a bully act, man. And it leads to exactly what we're doing right now, which is Americans now blaming Iran. I'll just say it, okay, so people can come after me, but Iran saying that certain flags can move through the Hormuz and others can't. That is a tariff. There is no price of the tariff that a white, blue, and red flag can move. That's a tariff. So why are we complaining? If they're so logical, why are we complaining that Iran said, nah, we're not doing this week? We don't like you guys. We have some control, and we're going to get your behavior to change. It's a tariff, man. No one's been hurt. They didn't send a missile anywhere. They just said, hey, this shit's closed for a while, okay, until we can get fair trade, fair something. So, Ben made the comment early on, this is really important for, I think, Americans. We do not have a free market and have not had a free market for at least 50 years. A free market being that you and I can do commerce without massive amounts of jumping through hoops, and we can compete with anyone, including the biggest players in the world. I should be able to compete with Exxon. I should be able to compete with Visa. I should be able to compete with Google. I should have fucking choice, but I do not. 72% of every industry is controlled by no more than 3 players. When you get 3 players, Google, Facebook, and whoever picks somebody else, I think they have 72%. If they had 50% of the total market, it's too much. And this is when you start to get distortions. And, I would just beg this question, since I'm not being timed, but who else does these tariffs, okay? Now China has rules. Hey, you can't export gold. That's a tariff, dude. Can't have gold leave your country is a tariff, right? So, what's new? I got it. It's been happening forever and ever. Small countries don't do it. And by the way, we handed our manufacturing base to the world, dude. Nobody raped us for it. We handed it to them so that Wall Street could expand their EBITDA margin, go hire a bunch of Indian cheap, super cheap labor. Okay, that's a fucking tariff. Okay? At the expense of not only the employees here, our manufacturing base, but today we're paying a lot for that because we're in a position right now going, hey, we can only push so far because if Korea drops, we don't have any chips. Okay? Well, we made that decision, man. You can't look back. Y'all voted for these people to outsource to the world so that Walmart could make, 30 bips of EBITDA more. And that's we're here there. We're here now. But seriously, is there any difference in what Iran's doing with the closure of Hormuz? I would just ask this question. I know it's conflating, but I think it's a legitimate question because you're just one step away from war when you start doing these tariffs. It's a bully move, dude.
I'll let you take it, Roberto.
Okay. Well, yeah, I look, I would agree. It is a bully move. This isn't like something that, some hippie, all hands holding together circle would ever do, right? But this is the reality of the world. This is geopolitical warfare, right? And so if China would do tariffs, if they were the leader of the world, and Russia would do them, and Japan would do them. I mean, Japan does them right now. Japan has a 40% rice tariff because the Japanese domestic political base understands that if Japan gets into protracted war, especially with China, and they have to, provide for their own supply lines, and they don't have rice, then their soldiers are going to starve. So you have to protect, those industries. And exactly the points you're making are bolstering what we're saying, right? The fact that we didn't have tariffs for 50 years allowed our manufacturing base to be exported to India and to Pakistan and to Bangladesh and destroyed the American.
No, I'm saying that we did have tariffs, though, dude. We literally made it easier to do business offshore than onshore.
How is that a tariff? That's an anti-tariff.
Well, but it's still a tariff. It's a behavior that's giving someone access or not access. Right now, U.S. ships don't have access to the global market through the Hormuz. It's a negative tariff. Hey, you just can't get through. There's no number. Okay, unless you trade in yuan, right? So they're literally changing the rule. What's the difference? Hey, I'm changing the price of you being able to enter. My toll fee, you guys are flying through Oregon, trying to get to San Francisco, and there's a toll, and all of a sudden, your Oregon plates don't get through, dude. You're stocked.
So
Okay.
essentially what you're describing is a reverse tariff, right? Which means that it's harder for Americans to compete internationally because
It was impossible, dude. It was impossible for them to compete with an Indian at 50 cents an hour.
Exactly. So but that has eroded our domestic manufacturing base, our domestic, economy, our middle class.
Yeah, I'm just saying we did it on purpose.
By every metric, people are worse off than they were 20 years ago.
No, that's not true, dude.
Almost every metric.
That's not true.
Economically. Oh yeah, almost every metric economically. The only thing you could maybe argue would be the tech side. I think we have faster phones, we have more streaming and stuff, but housing affordability, food affordability, real wages, productivity, and the actual gains for productivity, access to financial markets in terms of pricing of S&P shares per hours of work, it's all more expensive. And that's from 20 years of Fed QE plus this globalization narrative that has pushed the American worker to the back burner.
Well, what you just described is currency manipulation, which is what we often hear people accuse China of, and I thought you guys did a good job laying out the case, right? That China's currency manipulation and tariff policies, right, have unfairly advantaged them over their American competitors. The issue is, do we really want manufacturing here anyway? Let's just make the poors do it for us so that we can live fat and happy and comfortable lives across the board, right? It's been an advantage for us, and we don't need to shift to economic bullying when we have the biggest, most kick-ass military in the history of everything and can use that shit to put people in line. Why we have to do this whole, let's go back to tariffs. I just got to throw it out there, right? It's just one more tax. We're not getting, right? If Trump was actually going to get rid of the income tax, we're actually going to get rid of property tax. We're going to get rid of sale tax and that, etc. Then I'm all for it, right? If we want to condense that down into tariffs, but that's not how our government works. What we'll get tariff tax, which is another regressive hidden tax on everything that we buy, and we'll have income tax, and we'll have sale tax, and we'll have every other tax, right? All of it. So we just need to go with Team World Economic Forum and listen to those geniuses on how we do stuff.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I guess the way I'd push back on it is if you go and say, hey, how do you design a system from scratch that actually works, right? Like you said, if you're just going to have taxes on top of taxes where it's income tax, property tax, lay out the list, right? That doesn't work that well. If you go back to something similar to the Gilded Age where you have zero income tax and, right, zero taxes on inheritance and all these different things, right? That creates a very different mindset for society. And, right, they did that in a time of the gold standard, and they had high tariffs where, right, certain commodities and raw goods might not be tariffed as highly, but then you have intermediate goods where it's a step up, and then finished manufactured goods are another step up. And then you kind of have a scale where that incentivizes internal production of these different things, right? And right, well, people they throw out a blanket statement and say, all right, tariffs are going to make everything more expensive. It's well, not the stuff made in the US, right? And that's where you have to go and get the kind of buy-in from the manufacturers, where if you go and look back at some of the stuff that was made 50, 60, 70 years ago, whether it's washing machines, freezers, refrigerators, my grandma still has a fridge that's 70, 80 years old, and the thing's indestructible, right? Never has to be fixed, repaired, any of that stuff. Still works great. And that's because they weren't built with the kind of planned obsolescence or the design to break down, where you basically get on a subscription service for washing machines, dryers, right? Refrigerators, dishwashers, all this other stuff, right? And if you actually start building stuff that is designed to last for 50 years, 100 years, right? People are going to say, hey, I'll buy that washing machine for whatever, 2 or 3 times the current price, but it's going to last forever, and you're going to have a lifetime repair and lifetime warranty, right? That's a very different approach as far as the quality and kind of design of the industry. So I think that's where you kind of have to shift the mindset of, like, instead of being on this treadmill of consumption to make GDP go up, you have a very different view on, hey, these are important goods and we need to design them to be reliable and durable and last a long time.
So, and welcome, Grant. Good to see you guys. Listen, we abandoned tariffs for the greatest monetary system of all time, known as the fiat system, right? So, like, we moved away from tariffs so that we could. And it's funny because
tariffs are the greatest thing that has ever happened to this country. Tariffs are very, very important to level the playing field. Tariffs are not a tax. You do not have to be taxed. You do not have to buy the product. The marketplace will determine whether you want it or not. Rubber ducks do not cause inflation. People buying rubber ducks cause inflation.
So Grant, let me ask you,
Tariff is
bro.
a voluntary tax, unlike other taxes that are involuntary.
Voluntary. Oh, because you can choose to buy it or not buy it. What about the guys in the Hormuz? Do they have the ability?
You don't have to buy it.
Yo,
Yeah.
do they have the ability? Is what Iran's doing in the Hormuz nothing more than a more militaristic tariff? But it's a tariff nonetheless. And therefore, if it's okay in your American tariff, hey, it's the greatest thing. Why shouldn't someone be able to close their channels and go, hey, we don't like you guys this week. It's going to cost you more than somebody else. I don't think it's any different. I think it's literally the same thing. You're trying to effectuate the same event, are you not? You're trying to put pressure on someone to do something through those tariffs. And I wish Grant would have been here earlier because he says they're the greatest thing. They are only done by bullies. I think everyone agreed to that. Does any non-bullies pull the tariff button? They don't. They can't. That's the problem. And it distorts the market, man. It literally, as soon as you do it, it's like, now you should say, hey, this market's been distorted forever. Oh, okay. So we're fixing something that we fucked up before. Oh, okay. Let's acknowledge that. Hey, we should never have gone global. We should never have outsourced our manufacturing, but we did, and we made a shitload of money doing it. And now we're like COVID-19 or 38 or whatever they call it, threw us in a complete supply shock. The world actually, I think, did extremely well. Logistically, did extremely well, okay? When you have tariffs, it fucks up all the logistics and all the supply lines. And we keep doing this over and over, changing the game, man. A tariff is an intervention after 50 years. It's a monster intervention. Now, I'm not saying that you didn't need to do it. I would have done it too, okay? But it should be, hey, I'm not buying anything from China until they open the demand side of the market up, period. That should be the tariff. Like, if you don't accept my social media there, then fuck off. I'm not accepting any of your shit. To me, you can't close the gateway into a country one way and go, hey, I want to do trade with you, but I want to only do it one way. We try to get away. Like, it's not a good relationship. It's not going to survive that. So I don't really get, like, you know, can you guys debate with me what Iran's doing in the Hormuz is not much different, really?
I mean,
I was just going to throw out that if I were China, I wouldn't want our social media companies in there either. But with the Hormuz thing,
I got to tell you, dude, if I'm China, I wouldn't want us anywhere near it. Like, we seem to fucking make shit bad.
Well, okay. I mean, if you want to go down the rabbit hole on the social media companies and who's behind them, that's another topic. But the Hormuz thing, especially, I think is really
well. This is a tariff. This is another tariff, though. When winners and losers are picked by your government, dude, it is a tariff against me and a tariff against you, and it's a fucking free ride for them.
I mean,
this is like we start getting into this. So you start going, hey, like, why isn't Elon being more vocal? Because he's worried about tariffs, dude.
But here's the difference with that tariff, though. The winner that you're picking is someone within the country, and the loser you're shunning is someone outside the country. So you're picking the winners and losers to protect the domestic manufacturing industry or domestic agriculture, right? I would prefer that if Ben was running an apple orchard in Washington, that I would buy his apples and his business would be supported and he'd hire Americans, rather than me buying apples from China, and it would, help a bunch of Chinese people that I don't know. And then they could undercut my neighbor, Ben, by just hiring a bunch of cheap labor. I'll pay a premium to make sure that this, economic strength and the jobs and everything stays within our borders.
So I'm going to kind of switch, because I'm struggling to be on the anti-tariff team, because I know
we already got our first W. Now we need to get Gary over.
I did such a good job disguising it with my praise of the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and the crew. But reciprocal tariffs, right, is what Trump is striving for and what the heart of the policy is. Reciprocal is like in exchange for what they're charging us is what we're going to charge them back. So to your question, Gary, which is like the demand side, which is we want access to your markets so that we can sell our shit to your people. In exchange, you can melt your trash and sell it to us as plushies in our Five Below stores here in America. Like that's kind of the general idea behind reciprocal tariffs, which is what you're charging us, we charge you back, so that there is an equalization there. But on the Strait of Hormuz thing, I want to just the important distinction between it being a tariff and it being military is another selling point of tariffs, which is the exercise of strength, the projection and protection of economic power using the military versus using economic force, right? Which is, I would rather see us impose a tax on goods and services in order for us to project our power than having to send American troops and lives to go open some strait. So, and it's also, for people who are interested, Peter Navarro, Trump's architect on tariffs, gave a speech at the Council of Foreign Relations last year that is phenomenal. And it speaks specifically about, if we want to be non-interventionist, if we want to stop being the world's policeman through military strength, we have to do something else to fill the power vacuums. That something else is tariff policy, which is we can decide who gets access to American ingenuity goods, right? Based on how we tariff things, who can sell to us, how your economy does. That's a power shift away. So like to your point about the Strait of Hormuz, that's an exercise of military strength to be able to either shut it down or use the military to reopen it. Shifting away from military strength to economic power, I think, is beneficial for humanity in the long term. So I had to go off course there. Just sorry. I'll go back to slurping globalism and all. Yeah.
No, listen. I think that y'all need 3 or 4 or 5 people on your side. Dana can even jump on your side, because look, at the end of the day, I just go back to one thing. I asked a primary question, which was, and I see the audience getting really jacked up about my question on the Hormuz. Simply a question, guys. What is the difference? Because you're basically going, hey, look, no one from Germany is sending me a BMW without a 30% tax on it. Well, that makes it a non-sale. Like fucking blow the ship up. Not a lot of difference. You're just done. You cannot access the largest market on planet Earth. See ya. Hey, I want to go to the Billy Joel concert. Oh, Gary Cardone, he said something about the Hormuz. We're charging him 150% more. And you guys are suggesting that's cool? Come on, man. Okay. Equal tax, got it. Okay. But a selective tax, because this gets very slippery, right? Hey, who's our enemy? You literally start looking around. Hey, who's our enemy? By the way, if you guys didn't know, okay, the Indians, the Chinese, the Americans, they're all going to be on the same level playing field in about 3 years. So We had to bring everything back here. Why would we keep paying someone offshore when we can do this with software? So this is all coming back to nationalization. Like, I expect to eat my food from within 10 miles in the next 5 years. I expect that. That is what this world needs, actually. Safe food, not food that's sitting in freezers that are being mutated and changed. And so many of these issues gets resolved by decentralization. The same kind of decentralization that occurs on oil. Okay, now we have this big conflict going on, like it or don't like it, but people were expecting $200 oil, and it's not 200, it's 96. People understand that, hey, look, that will break the whole world. But I do think these tariffs have, look, we most certainly are entering into a very different world than we were in 10 years ago. And we're doing it at a rapid rate. Look, I have been supportive of these tariffs because for me, it's ridiculous that we would do business with any country and I can't then access their clientele. However, I do ask the theoretical, but I think realistic question. Have you ever seen anyone apply a tariff that wasn't a major gangster that had more guns than everybody else? And the answer is yes, never. Never. It's all like it's a gangster move, dude. It's bully.
I mean, that's just what government is, though. At the end of the day, it's like the
no, not all governments. I don't see El Salvador doing this. I don't see, Russia. Does Russia have any tariffs? They have a bunch of tariffs.
Yep.
I mean,
or do they just say, "Hey, we don't do business with enemies"?
No,
El Salvador.
See, I think that'd be cool. Wow, we're at war with somebody. We don't buy shit from them. We do this all the time, dude. We literally. I think if you went and looked at the ledger, we're actually supporting our enemies on a regular basis, and then we're talking about tariff bullshit.
well, I think,
And then, by the way, they can change it 12 minutes later.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes for a very, very unstable world. And I see people saying, "Hey, you're wrong, dude. If they can't keep a tariff in place for more than 30 days, it was most certainly wrong."
Well, I think it's one of the things that people have been very critical of is like the tariff side of things, where the policy changes on a weekly or monthly basis. If the market's puking and like last April, whatever, we're going to completely change it. And I mean, the lack of consistency is a big part of the problem with like the execution on it. But as far as like the BMW example, right, there's nothing stopping BMW from selling cars in the US, but you're basically incentivizing.
Except the economics.
Well, I was getting there. I was going to say that except you're incentivizing them to build factories in the US and have that production capacity where the consumers are, right? And right, as the largest consumer market for right cars and a lot of these different products, right? If you're able to put that near the customer and do it in a way where you're going to avoid a 40 or 50 or 60% tariff, which I mean, if you look at European tariffs and
We lost you, Ben.
Huh?
When he comes back on the mic, I see a bunch of people going, "Hey, third world country." Listen, this is not my topic of expertise. They're telling me Mauritius and other islands have tariffs, and maybe we didn't define this well. Maybe it's my ignorance. Are these tariffs or taxes? And like when I'm in the Cayman Islands and I have to get a product sent to the Cayman Islands, it's going to have some fees, dude. It's shipping and taxes, and I mean, I don't know if that's in the same kind of tariff we're talking about, Dustin.
no, but
Can't hear you, bro.
was it me or is
Still can't hear you,
it might be
Ben,
I can hear Ben. I can hear Ben.
and I still can't hear you.
I can hear. We can
Ben.
hear you. We can. I think that's on your side, Gary.
somebody
okay. I was going to say,
Right?
I don't have any issues hearing Dustin or Roberto. So
to Gary's point, I think it is. Tariffs are a tax on imports, right? Like a percentage tax on imported goods. Period. So, right, like I think we can narrow the definition down significantly. Right, it's a tax on imports, and so and it's directed like by country. So right now we can put a tariff on the goods coming from Switzerland versus Venezuela, for example. It's a system that allows us to have a lot of direct control over like who benefits from the American economy. And so, right, like access to our markets and at what prices allow us a lot of control and projection of power and authority by choosing like where we're going to put stuff. So, but tariffs are simply a tax, a percentage tax on imports, like definitionally. Gary, can you hear us again? I'm gonna take that as a note.
Hello, Gary?
Maybe not.
Okay.
Gary's
Gary
still
is
muted. Yeah.
Doesn't hear things when he doesn't want to hear them. He doesn't want
Yeah.
So okay, so now the question is like the inconsistency.
Guys, am I the only one with bad audio?
I think
No,
so.
we can hear you fine.
Gary, you're muted. Gary's muted. We cannot hear you, Gary.
That's right. I can't. I can hear Grant. I can't hear Gary. He's showing his muted though.
Yo, Grant, can you hear me? We'll have a side conversation, Grant. I can hear no one. Fucking dropped a tariff on my own show.
Dude, the
God
audio,
damn.
Gary, the audio is so bad in this stream.
Bro, you know what? It all happened when you showed up, dog. You brought the sound magnet in here and destroyed everything. Oh, my God.
Dude, I want to
So
talk
what's
about
up,
some
Grant? How you
titles
doing?
for
Yeah,
future shows, man. Future
Please do,
shows.
dude.
Okay,
Skip,
Dane, I'm going to
please.
give you some, okay?
Yeah, let's.
Okay, single or married, who's more productive?
Boom, boom.
Should women be in business? Okay.
Ooh. Ooh.
Prenup or no prenup?
Ooh.
Like, I don't know why you're having a problem with these titles, Dana. It's the thing that people are interested in, okay? Real estate or stocks? Is Vanguard, Merrill Lynch, and Fidelity retirement accounts actually good for you? Or are they outdated? Like, how long you want me to go? Okay. Is obesity a disease or just a lazy ass? There's one. Okay.
Yeah, Dana, maybe you could get Oprah for us. She is a theory. It's a gene problem.
I don't think you can get it. But anyway, these are, is dyslexia a reading disorder or just somebody that doesn't look up their fucking words like Governor Trans Newsom? Should the American taxpayer fund a fucking trans surgery? Okay.
Wow, these are excellent.
Why don't you handle it next week?
Okay,
We'll let
but
you
you guys
lead
got
the
to just get
trans.
off. Y'all got to get
we'll
off
let
the
you lead
Bitcoin
trans,
dick. It's just too lazy.
We'll let you lead the trans conversation next week. Dana, maybe you could get some of your more colorful friends to join. And Grant,
What makes
I
you
think Grant would do a great job. And
I
we
think
still
that
can't hear you, Dana.
If I can't pull any,
Like literally, can anyone else hear Dana besides
Yes.
you? But
You know,
Grant and I can't. Wow.
Is experimenting with homosexuality make you a homosexual?
Well, why don't you tell us, Grant?
These are all great topics.
It didn't
by the
seem to
way.
work on you, dude.
I love it.
I mean,
I
you
love
seem
it.
okay still.
I actually, all of those topics are extremely on point.
Thank you, Dustin.
I also, I think
I didn't hear Dustin. You could hear Dustin?
that
Can't
would,
hear Dustin, dude.
I'll hear him. Yeah.
that would
Why
be
is that?
gift
I
for the
think
show.
maybe somebody's tariffing me.
I did not have nearly as good of a list as Grant, but we have. I would be willing to bet amongst the people we have just right here, we have access to almost anyone in the country or in the world. There's
If I
almost
can find
no
any
one we could go
trans
find.
people, I think that,
Man,
Gary,
I think I lost some audience, Dana.
address
A1
that.
Rising is very upset with me. There's people in there. I've never disagreed with Gary, but oh my God, he's talking about this. He's Iranian. Okay, listen, I'm gonna drop out because I can't hear.
Go for it.
Yeah, I won't be selfish. I'll just drop out. Hopefully, it doesn't close the whole room. I'll leave the studio. Okay.
Gary, why don't
You
you
do
just
that, right?
remove your headphones? Just go like this.
I can't hear you, dude.
Okay.
Didn't you get the point? I cannot hear
Well,
you.
Read my lips.
Well,
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I think Gary's leaving because he's losing, and he's got to leave and save face. That's what I think.
I can't hear
Yeah.
anything.
Well, I will say again, if you guys want to change topic, I'm totally fine with that. Mitch was asking me a topic, and he said that Grant and Gary were both tired of doing Bitcoin all the time. And so I said, well, we could do economics and stuff. And both of them said that they agree with most of us on economics. And so I said, you know what, let's just do tariffs then. I guess that's probably the one thing we would disagree on. So
Yeah,
we can talk about Iran. We can talk about the Iran war.
Tariffs, but apparently, everybody else is not happy about it. So
Okay.
looks like we're talking about trans and experimenting with other sexes next week.
Nice.
I'm
excited.
The problem is we have and this is like part of the Bitcoin problem. We have so many freaking both of you guys, both of youngsters, it's actually really encouraging for me to see young people who are shit. Because I went through today, we need some little Krasenstein gnomes to beat up on the show. You know what I mean? It's we have all smart people stand up in these nuanced conversations, our sacrificial retards. I'm just throwing it out. But no, I think my frustration with the tariffs is that everybody thinks it's boring, but it's at the heart of everything. If we're ever going to change and get away from a fiat inflated currency, large scale, you have to put the guardrail of tariffs in place, right? If we're ever going to get away from our foreign entanglements and interventionism, you have to have another way to project power. And so it's completely ignored. We want all these things. For me, the Iran stuff's very difficult because I voted for Trump and supported Trump specifically because anti-war, pro-trade, and American protectionism, American first. It feels like we're violating that by going into Iran. Well, what do we do in the interim, right? If we're going to get rid of the old systems of power, we all agree are corrupt and terrible, what do we shift to? Well, tariffs have worked for a long time for countries, and we should have these debates. And yet the public-facing debate is, it's a hidden tax on everything, and we just pay so much. And it gets us away from, we don't have the kind of discussions that we should have around this stuff. I believe that if the tariff system had been allowed to progress, I don't think we'd have to do the stuff we've been doing in Iran. Or is it just that Israel has that much power over us? Because Joe Kent, who's somebody I know from Washington State during his congressional runs, I've had many conversations with him, kind of comes from the Tulsi Gabbard wing of the party, this new coalition that includes kind of the Maha wing, RFK, and else. Resigned today and just straight said we're doing, he was the deputy director on counterterrorism. So I can't in good conscience continue to serve this administration when we are literally doing this on behalf of Israel. And we need to talk about these things, but I also don't want to just do the thing where we talk about, but I'm tired of people just fucking complain all the time. We have a society of people who sit around, complain about everything we're fed in the news. Nobody ever talks about the actual solutions. You know what? Solution talk maybe seems boring because it's tariffs and what percentage do we charge these people? But that's exactly how we have to do something to fix it. And we have to have these higher level conversations and not always dumb it down. So that's why I appreciate this. That's my defense of the topic.
I don't think I've ever heard Dustin cry so much before. The furry convention is coming to Vegas. I think I should bring some furries on. What do you guys think?
Oh my God, furries.
I'm down as long as there's a tariff. As long as we tax those weirdos for all the stuff they're wearing.
1,000% tariff on furries.
All furry products, 1,000% tariffs. We're not letting them live anywhere else. No, yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, Dustin. We would like to live in this world, this fairy tale world, where everyone plays by the rules, where everything is fair, where no one breaks the rule of law. But the reality is, rule of law is a Western concept. It's something that only exists really in developed Western nations. The rates of corruption, the rates of bribery, the rates of rule breaking in the third world is through the roof. And so if we're going to compete fairly with people, they need to be competing fairly with us. And so why would we allow like the Sudanese or the Chinese or the Indians to compete against us on unfair terms? It screws us up economically and obviously militarily, like I said, as we're seeing with our missile shortages with our interceptors. And most people don't know this, but there's about like a dozen critical minerals that the U.S. needs for our missile production and for defense that China has almost 100% monopoly on. We're talking graphite, we're talking gallium, we're talking silver.
Gallium.
We need these things to fight a war, Gary. And if we got into a war with the U.S.,
we need to fight less wars. Okay.
Yes,
it would be okay if I didn't have to fly on an airplane. I think it would be okay if we didn't actually act like animals constantly and rip people off and pillage. And this is the greatest tariff on humanity ever. Like this is like you're killing people, man. Okay, imagine your brother being slaughtered, and we're talking about fucking the price of popsicles. So, see, this is my point. And I didn't do any homework. I was listening to you guys at the beginning. I'm like, if I wasn't a bully, if I wasn't the biggest guy on the block, could I ever impose a tariff? Nope, I could not. It's not cool, dude. It's talk about fair. Now, I'm not suggesting that other people act fair, but like you
Gary, so if you want to ship a car to Jamaica, you're going to pay 100% tariff on it.
Yeah.
Jamaica does not have more guns than us. They're not they're not bigger than us.
Yeah, I agree.
All of these other countries, it's actually, right, like the tariff system actually protects the little guy against the bigger guys. And the reason that we need to be able to like shift is like, okay, America has zero right to it would be completely effed up for us to bully Jamaica, right? Like Jamaica is this big, we're this big, but it's a whole different thing when we're talking about China, right? China has been manipulating their currency, stockpiling the resources, and then hoarding critical manufacturing specifically to gain advantages both militarily, economically, and geopolitically. And so we've got to be able to set these policies based on like the country we're dealing with. And where I disagree is that to me, tariffs are a way for us to economically resolve these issues instead of militarily. And it really is Peter Navarro, the architect of Trump's tariff policy. His whole thing about is if we're ever going to shift away from military interventionism, it's going to be through economic force being applied. And that's what tariffs is all about. So to me, there is an important distinction. I'm anti-war. I don't want to be the world's freaking policeman. I don't want to bully poor people in Gaza or smaller countries than us. I want to be able to shift the economic might and power of America specifically to places that can benefit from it. Tariffs give us the tools to be able to do that, which is why I believe Trump brought them back and picked them up from like the 1890s. And it's very fascinating because if William McKinley had not been assassinated, McKinley was a gold standard, sound money guy who was also a big tariff guy because the two are directly related to each other. He's assassinated. Teddy Roosevelt comes in, implements the fiat system, installs the FBI, the Department of Interior, grabs the land with the national parks, etc., and completely shifts us to what ends up becoming with the New Deal, which is a total shift away from the economics that built this country, like the economics of the founding fathers and the beginning of this country going forward. So like that's why this debate is important, which is Trump's trying to do something unprecedented, which is he's trying to take this sick system that has poisoned the world, that has poisoned despite the fact that Americans bend over backwards to benefit all of the countries all over the world. We take the worst side of every deal every fucking time, and we get hated for it. Like, it's the dumbest, mind-boggling policy imaginable. Instead, he's trying to shift it to a way that we still project and maintain power, but we're not doing it through all of this free trade globalist bullshit. And like, nobody's having that discussion. And it does cut to whether or not we have to go. Like, I'm not sending my son over to die in a desert like so many of my friends.
Yeah.
Right? I'm done with Middle East wars and other bullshit, but I'm not done making sure that, like, I still believe that the American people, maybe less so the American government, but the American people have done more to advance the human condition in this world than anybody else by far. We've done more, we've given up more, we've sacrificed more than anybody that's ever become before us in any time, any period in history ever. And yet we're always the bad guy. I mean, part of that comes with being the dominant force. But if we're going to clean up all of the shit we hate, how do we do both? How do we both continue to maintain and project the goodness of America while cutting out all of the evil, dirty bullshit? That's, and again, I believe this is what, like, the whole policy idea. And again, I think the Supreme Court, which is a globalist bullshit entity, tried to cut his knees out on it. Like, right, like the fight is both internal and external, because as Gary pointed out, the people who wanted to tear the tariff system down and go to quote unquote free trade, it was all about making extra percentage points for a handful of bullshit douchebags on Wall Street who never factor in the cost of the human cost of cuts and efficiency.
Well, I think too, if like you actually want a smaller government and one that's not going to be as be more responsible on the fiscal side, right? You're going to need to have something that puts the brakes on that. And right, the obvious one is the gold standard, right? But tariffs also have that kind of impact where if you have gold standard plus tariffs and you have 0% kind of income tax on the corporate and personal level, you're basically incentivizing a whole different set of behaviors for the government. And I think the other thing you could do too for the kind of resource and commodity production side is if you had, right, there's been some experimenting with like talk about a sovereign wealth fund or some of these different things. I think if you put like a 1% royalty on all commodities and energy produced in the US and just said, all right, this goes into the wealth fund and this is going to be used exclusively for infrastructure projects and major projects that might not pencil out on like the spreadsheet monkey IRR type return basis for the Wall Street guys. But hey, our country decides we want to have like beautiful buildings, and so we're going to build right Grand Central Station or some of these things where these landmarks can last 50 or 100 years, but it's not going to pencil out on a spreadsheet type calculation. So I think there's different things that could be done to have an approach for, hey, like we want to be around as a country in 50 years, 100 years. And it's not going to happen if we keep having unlimited immigration and like all these different things, right? Is it like free trade or like some of these different policies that we've seen over the last like several years? Like, is the Quality Learning Center in Minnesota, is that free trade? Right? Stuff like that is just insane, right? But here we are, and we have to deal with the fraudulent spending, and there's no brakes on this. And right, I think we are at the point where it's like, to clean this up, it's going to take ropes and guillotines and not like, oh, we're going to send this guy to jail for whatever, because court systems don't work anyway. But I mean, that's the thing, is there has to be a fix somewhere. And I'm not sure that like the current system of government as a democratic republic is the answer. So that's kind of my opinion on it. So,
well, I'm with you on that. So I did this deep dive today on tariffs. I was looking at McKinley. What's fascinating is at the time there was a movement called bimetallism, and so it gets to monetary. So bimetallism was, we wanted to. There was a group of people in the U.S. that wanted to inflate the amount of currency that was available by expanding silver to settle debt, so that they were going to put gold and silver on a fixed exchange rate of 15 to 1 so that you could settle your debts with the banks and other people with gold and then silver. So it expanded the amount of currency that was in circulation, which increases velocity, etc. And McKinley was opposed to that. So like the competition has been between like the protectionists, people who want sovereignty. Tariffs are like part of that, and sound money. It's so interesting to me how we're having these same fights, that they just bubble up over and over and over and over again. And we're at the point though where our current system is so bloated, rotten, and out of control that what in the ever-loving F are we doing in Iran right now? Like to me, I see this stuff, and then the pushback, to me, it brings out the worst in us, this military interventionism. And yet you could go back to Washington, you could go to Eisenhower, the number of people who have led us, who have warned us about foreign entanglements and the desire to get engaged militarily. And this idea that it's going to be short term, you guys think Joe Kent resigns today if if the war's wrapping up and we're going to be done? I sure hope, I pray every day that Trump has figured out a way to thread that needle, because I don't want to live my whole goddamn life with Middle East wars being a threat to the young men in my life, right? Like I can't tell you how many friends I lost in Afghanistan and Iraq. And for what? What did we fucking get out of them? Nothing. Those are some of the best
oil for Israel.
Yeah. I mean, he called it out specifically. And it's interesting, though, because monetary policy also gets to like fundamentally who has control. Who controls the money? The banks that control the money, the families that control the banks, also leads to a lot of like these other policy decisions that impact us long term. It's like, to me, I remember when Trump, like between the time when Trump was president-elect for the second time, he floated the idea of getting rid of the income tax. To me, there's two taxes that make us slaves: the income tax and the property tax. Which is, if we hadn't changed the words of Locke in the Constitution, where life, liberty, and property became life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and property, you don't own anything if you have to permanently pay rent on it as a property tax. And we're trying to fix that in Florida right now. There's some other places that are trying to do it. It's the same with income, right? Like the amount of taxes we pay. Moses, when he led the Israelites away from the pharaohs in Egypt, the pharaohs took like 25%, and it was considered slavery. We're probably at 60, 70, 75% of all of our production, all of our wealth, like the level of taxation against it. We're at this level of insanity. And look at the pushback when you try to implement, right? Like, we can't just blow the whole damn system up. We have to build, like, it's always been my argument about Bitcoin and crypto, which is we have to build superior alternatives that people can turn to that can be proven that way. But look at the pushback you get when you do. And so tariffs, like, if you think tariffs are overall like on the bad, I just encourage you to go look at the history. Go look at McKinley. We could do a whole conspiracy side of this too, like the Ingersoll Lockwood and the Aaron Trump time traveler stuff. Like there's a weird thing around the start of the 1900s, the Great Reset and the World Fairs, and this complete shift away from nationalist, multipolar economic and fiscal policies. And it seems like all of that's being revived around this time, and we should encourage people to be knowledgeable and discuss it. So,
Ben or Roberto, what are your thoughts on that? I think listen, I agree. We needed it. That's why we're having the discussion, right? probably a little late that we had the discussion. I was, may not be as relevant as 4 weeks ago, but what are y'all's thoughts? Have you had any kind of, to our guest, any kind of movement, or like, what did you get out of this, if anything? And to the audience, hey, listen, this is, every debate's not going to be the most exciting debate in the planet. I do agree with my brother. I think there are some other really interesting topics out there. But Ben or Roberto, why don't we give the floor to you guys? And, have you softened up any on your views, or in fact firmed up?
I think I've firmed up. I mean, what Dustin said was very, very cogent, right? Tariffs are a tool of economic policy to protect a people, right? A nation. And in lieu of that, you have things like, economic malaise, depression, deindustrialization, complete gutting of domestic industries. And if there is a war, which I do not support this war, I also want to say that emphatically. My discussion of the national security side was just as like an example of describing how important it is to protect a domestic industry. But if there is a war, and especially if it's a defensive war, you want to have the ability to defend yourself. And this war in Iran is not a defensive war. We're fighting this on behalf of a foreign nation to benefit them and to, ostensibly weed out a nuclear power or an emerging nuclear power in the region that threatens Israel. And our entanglement there, as we're starting to see, is starting to balloon, just like Afghanistan, just like Iraq, just like Vietnam, starting to balloon and expand and get entangled and get mired in the quagmire that is a war in Central Asia, right? They're essentially, from what I understand, no empire has fully conquered Central Asia since the Mongols. So our belief that we can go in, bomb a couple dozen Iranian officials, kill their Ayatollah, kill their negotiating team, and then walk back and say, hey guys, I know we just basically destroyed your leadership structure, and your leadership structure has now shifted to new people who are even more radical, but now we want to negotiate. Now we want to have a discussion. We just killed a bunch of people and we pissed you guys off, and we obviously caused a ton of economic damage. We caused a ton of damage to our own partners like Qatar and Saudi and UAE, who have already seen drone strikes and missile strikes on their own petroleum facilities. I know we did all that, but hey, we were just kidding, and we're going to walk it back and actually want to strike a deal now. Well, of course they're going to say no. And the Iranians have been preparing for this for 40, 50 years. I mean, since the early 80s. They've known that the US and Israel especially has been aligned in this, kind of like perverse alliance against them. And I'm not saying the Iranians are good people. I'm not saying the Ayatollah was a good person by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a totalitarian regime. But in their preparation for this war, they've decentralized their military and command structure. So they've created all these networks so that anytime you kill a commander, the responsibility, the chain of command falls to the next person, and then gets split between the next two people and split between the next two people. So it's like a hydra where you have to, in order to fully institute a regime change, right? You can't just bomb a couple people, because they'll just keep shifting the responsibility of who's running the country and who's doing X, Y, and Z. And they'll create 30, 40, 50 backups. The way that you would actually have to do it would be a ground invasion, which requires 500,000, 1 million, 2 million men, and how many billions of dollars? I mean, the first 2 days of the Iran war already spent $1.6 billion a day, which is over $500 billion a year, which is 50% of our defense budget already, which is already bloated. So we're sitting at a state now where the U.S. is way over indebted, $38 trillion of debt, $1.1 trillion a year of interest expense. We're paying exorbitant amounts for basic goods for Americans. Housing prices are through the roof. Housing affordability is at an all-time low. Marriage rates are at an all-time low. By any metric, America, other than maybe you could say technologically, America is weaker economically than it was 10, 20 years ago. And so if we want to value that, we want to value American lives and American people, we need to withdraw from this war in Iran as quickly as possible. And I think overall, it should never have happened. We should disentangle ourselves from the rest of the world and only be defensive. If you invade us, we will go to war. Otherwise, it's not our fight. It's not our problem.
Yeah, I guess the follow-up there on basically agree with everything you had to say there, but when you kind of look at the economic system and our political system, right, one of the reasons that I think it's broken, just a 30,000 foot view, is you have a system where our leaders honestly don't give a shit about what is best for the country and what's best for the people of the country. And right, that's how you get the immigration issues and like the pharmaceutical and health system looking the way it does and the education, like go down the list, right? Because we don't have an elite class or aristocracy or right politicians that have the best interests of the country and the people in mind when they are making decisions, like this is the kind of results we get. And so whether we end up in some sort of like monarchy or some different form of government, whatever that may look like, right? If it has the best interest of the country in mind, I think that we can pretty much make it work. And that's where you get something like tariffs, where that creates, I mean, you look at what kind of happens for like different industries in a tariff system, like from, I think it's 1870 to 1900, like real wage growth for like people in the Gilded Age was like 60%, right? And you look at what real wages have done since we kind of went off the like gold standard sort of in 1971, the like minimum wage workers were making the equivalent of what, $70-$80 an hour today, if you want to measure it in gold terms or silver terms, depending on what you're using to inflate it, because CPI is not a real measurement anyway. But when you kind of look at some of these things and say, hey, how do we have a functioning and growing middle class? How do we do what's in the best interest of the country? How do we create a system that creates a long-term mindset for, right, industry, for people, for different generations? I think that's part of why we need a complete rework of like whether it's tariffs and the income tax or right some of these different structures. So I think I'm definitely on the pro tariff side, especially if you can get rid of income tax and some of these things where it really is basically kind of a slave system, whether it's property tax, stuff like that. It's not designed for long-term prosperity. And I think there's a reason that it wasn't a part of the kind of original setup of the United States.
Ben, it sounds like you're going to be a supporter of my run for benevolent emperor. So, no.
Yes,
I mean,
we're both voting. We're both on your team.
I'm definitely in the part of like the political kind of on the part of the political spectrum where I'm ready for the benevolent dictator. Like
You guys want a 50-year monarchy? Is that do a 50-year monarchy test?
Sign
See
me
how
up.
it goes.
Sign me up if it's someone who has the best interest of the country in mind. 100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
What do you think? What do you think about that, Gary?
Well, I think the way it is right now is really ugly. Okay, I think you have a secret group of people running this country. I mean, I was very impressed with Roberto. He said, "Hey, look, we're in Iran because Israel wants us there." Like to have, well, I would have never heard that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, from a young man. So I think that's good. I think people are coming awake. Look, I just don't. Free markets are always going to end up working. I'm just such a free market guy, and you guys are angry with me. I mean, I take aside to this, whatever the audience, whatever the guests are going to want to take, I'm going to end up taking whatever, the shittiest job. And I do think there's a question. Hey, when a guy has controls the tollway or in this case a channel of water, and he says, "Gosh, the red, white, and blue flags, we don't have a price for you today, but we have a price for all you other guys. By the way, USA guys want to trade in yuan, and no problem. It's a tariff change. I mean, it's a change of their conditions. So I'm just throwing it out there to all you red, white, and blue fucking drank the Kool-Aid, never questioned one thought about what you were drinking. Like, seriously, dude, it can't possibly be fair. You start poking people in the eyeballs, and people start fucking reaching back."
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, so like it's cool. I think doing the best thing for your country is cool, but we are on a world stage now. You can't just rug pull people. And then the Americans are very naive. I mean, like, gosh, they're trying to change behavior. Okay, and like you're trying to change behavior. You do a tariff and lock people out of your market. They're doing a embargo. I mean, it's a fucking embargo, man, right? That word just popped in. I mean, that's kind of like a tariff. So I just know that you can't keep changing the rules of a market. It really fucks things up when you start intervening, and this is intervention. I'm not saying it's not, maybe it was the only button you could press, but it is intervention. And every time you intervene, dude, there are unintended consequences every time.
Yeah.
And our government is overactive in the interventionists. Their muscle in intervention is well established. Let's face it. Okay. And they're running amok, man. Okay. They let Pfizer and Lilly do all kinds of crazy shit. The best actors in this whole space, really, if you look at the corporates, the best actors in the space are the oil and gas guys. It's amazing to me. Like, oh, that's the worst industry in the world. Literally, I see the oil and gas market performing spectacular compared to the rest of the world in all this violence. And by the way, there isn't a CEO of an oil company that wants this shit right now. Not one of them. Putin does not want this right now. It's not good for they're making a shitload of money, but it's not good long term. And I think of from a long term position, you can't keep doing this to the world when you're only 3% of the fucking population, man. Okay. Yeah. Like sooner or later, people are going to say, fuck off, bully. Because if you're them, and you guys can get upset with me if you want, the audience, dude, it is a bully move if you're on the receiving end. If you're on the receiving end, it is a bully move. And you can't use hey, well, I was in Cayman Islands and there's a tariff. That tariff's been there forever. Okay? They don't want you to bring in an Aston Martin on island freeways, and then somebody's going to have to fix the roads. So that makes total sense to me. If I want an American car and I'm living in England, I had to pay extra to get it over there. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Anyway, I don't think it has a clear look. I would not want to be the president of the United States. I think it'd be an awful job. I don't think you can win. This is so complicated now. There's so many moving pieces in a highly dynamic market. And further, that furthers my reasoning for you can't keep changing the rules. These markets are already dynamic enough. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I don't think I did a good job on this debate tonight because I don't really. I think there is a lot more to it. And I think people should ask the question, hey, have you ever seen a non-bully pull a tariff like this? Because there are different tariffs. We have to agree. Right? I mean, is there a tax or is there a tariff? Or, I can't buy marijuana from Colombia direct. Okay, so that's a tariff. It's legal here, but it's got to go through the system. There's a lot of things I can't do. So, I mean, Americans can't buy homes in some countries. Is that a tariff?
Embargo.
Okay. Embargo.
Well, I guess their affordability is probably better than his here in the U.S. But one thing I'll add too is just when you kind of get into the free trade side of things and look at kind of how everything's become interconnected, right? It'd be one thing if we didn't have the tariffs in Europe and VAT taxes, and if we didn't have China like giving 0% interest rate loans to like car manufacturers to design EVs, right? With the subsidies and the other kind of economic policies of some of these different countries, right? It's not a level playing field, right? And the tariffs is kind of an attempt to make that level or give right industries here in the US a chance to compete, right? And if you're able to do it in a way where it's not changing on a weekly or monthly basis, and it says, hey, like we're going to put tariffs here for these goods and like basically lay it out and say, this is how it is and it's not changing, right? I think people would adjust to it. But when you have to make a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year decision to build a factory, right? You can't do that if tariffs go from 20% to 50% to 10% in 2 months, right? It just doesn't work. So if there was some consistency, it'd be a lot easier to project out, hey, here's how we're going to navigate this. And if you're Toyota or BMW, here's where we're going to build our next factory. And right, all that can be done. It's just a matter of how do you actually execute on it?
I think a lot of what we're discussing is we're shifting. The world is decentralizing. We're moving to a multipolar world where the distribution of power and wealth is being further spread out. It's still overly concentrated, like people-wise, but geographically, the old idea of the superpower states is diminishing. We're moving to a multipolar world, and we're seeing a lot of the transitions of that. The question really becomes, do we fix any of the bullshit that we've had to deal with? Like, it's been telling to me to listen to Ben and Roberto. To be honest, it's been really refreshing. You guys are both incredibly well-spoken. You're welcome to come debate with us anytime. It's been refreshing because I can only imagine the frustration of looking at these old, bloated, corrupt systems and being like, what the fuck? Right? Like, we've been banging our heads against this stuff for a long time. The answers aren't as complicated as we make them, though. That's the other frustrating part, which is we've allowed them to overcomplicate everything to the point that we excuse their lack of real change, fairness, equality, justice, all the things we've allowed them to just overcomplicate shit and be like, whoa, no one can understand it, so it just has to be the way it is. Bullshit. Like, a lot of this stuff could be simplified down in a way. And I think we're going to move to that. Like, if there's one thing that like gives me hope to like leave people with somewhat of a white pill on my last little rant here, AI is going to allow us to make it so that no one can ever overcomplicate shit to hide it, which is everything our government does. Our legislative ease, tax policy, everything is overcomplicated on purpose so that there can be no accountability. All that shit's going away. And we need to demand simplicity from our public institutions and government. I think that's the starting point. We also need to create a division. Right now, we often talk about things. These corporations are bigger than nations. The ruling elite across nations. The blob that controls everything is not limited to nation states. It's not limited to corporate. Everything is their playing ground, and we have to create some checks and balances again. That's the other, and tariffs can be a part of that. Like, it's a policy. The reason that these smaller countries do it is it protects their people from more efficient, larger economies that could easily undercut their growing and emerging market. Like that's why, if you're Jamaica or Sri Lanka or whatever, that's why you do tariffs. That's why you don't allow the cheap efficiencies of other countries to come in and just completely decimate your ability to grow your own industry and make your own way. So that it's proven to be a critical part of that. My fear would be that we get tariffs, we don't get rid of income tax, we don't get rid of it. It's just one more way that they extract from all of us. Because that really, at the end of the day, is what's got it. The reason that spending's down, the reason that people don't want to have families, the reason people don't want to do all this shit is that all of the extraction of all of us, like from all of us, has just reached a point that like is no longer bearable. And at some point, like, we've got to look to things like the Declaration of Independence for like what the cures are. I'll just leave it at that. But Roberto, Ben, pleasure to meet both of you. Great guests today. I thought it was despite Gary's early apprehension, I thought it turned out really well. I'm glad we had this discussion. I also, if the audience has topics, I thought some of Grant's topics would be absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah, do you think we should do? We'll do some of those for next week. Do you think we should do these timers or no? Are we going to be timing the debates? What do you think, Gary?
You need a bill that says, "Hey, shut the F up."
We need
something really violent and aggressive.
What's going to happen? Though?
Or simply a ding,
their head
little
chopped
ding.
off.
Yeah.
Well,
Dana, why don't you take us out? I'm going to go to dinner with my daughter and talk to her about tariffs.
Okay.
There you go.
I think she'd
There you
enjoy
go.
that.
I think she'd love it. I think she'd be fascinated.
She would be like, "Dad, can I grab your Glock and shoot my face off? This is going to kill me, Dad."
Are you really serious, Gary? Come on, I heard that line works all the time with women. I thought they loved
It's by the way, speaking of women, do you guys notice Dana picks really nice, productive, affluent young men? Dustin, do you notice that? Intelligent, well-spoken. I mean, like, she's got an eye for talent. Gotta say, maybe that we should do that. Okay. When does Dana hook up? Do a debate next week. Dana hook up or no Dana hook up?
Okay, bye, Gary.
Ah.
Follow all these young men. They're very smart, and you should follow them if you want to become smarter. What do you think we should talk about next, Dustin? Do you guys want to participate in the next?
I'm not sure I can participate, but I mean, Mitch was asking me for ideas, and so that's why I just said, I was just like, well, what would they disagree on? And he said real estate. I said we could talk about real estate. And he's like, they already talked about that. Talk about Bitcoin. Like they don't know Japan well enough, because I know Japan really well, and so I just spitballed tariffs, and so that's what he said. But I would say you guys need to talk about Iran war, private credit, like housing affordability. I mean, there's so many other better topics, I think, around, and you could just pull your audience, honestly, like just ask them what they think. And what
I might get you nuked from orbit if we start talking about the transgender topic. So
yeah, true.
Maybe we'll debate if women should be in business or not, and I'll just take the side of that we should just take all the tariff money and then pay all the women, and they don't have to work. That's a good idea.
Maternity leave benefits nationally.
It's
not bad.
I don't think that's a solution. Well,
yeah, I mean,
we have a big list from Grant, so we'll pick from those.
you go with the 19th Amendment. You could do that debate. Should we repeal the 19th?
We'll do that. We'll do the experimentation one. We'll do the furries.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, Dana, for having all this thrown at you. You're such a sweet, like great moderator. So thanks for doing.
Thank you for hosting.
I didn't do anything. I am gonna figure out, Dustin, because you've done debates and stuff. I'm gonna figure out how to do the timer. The problem is Gary's gonna
interrupt. Yeah.
So it's like this is a high ask for me. It's a tall ask, but we'll figure it out.
By the way, Tim Blanche, I just tried to find you on X. Just tag me and I'll follow you back. Anyway, dude, great discussion today. Pleasure to meet both of you. Dana, great job as always getting everything booked. We'll pick one of these Grant fiery topics that gets everybody worked up. And maybe we'll go recruit some like little guarded gnomes to win.
You've got to have some dumb person that you guys can just like, they'll take the opposite side that you guys can just pile on to, because that'll make it more fun.
A derpader.
Yeah.
A derpader?
Yeah. Somebody's like derpader.
like I don't know. Who would that even be? We're just around smart people all the time.
Well,
I in my Twitter comments, I have 1,000 of those guys, so I can send you. I'll just send you like infinite amount of those trolls I can get you that keep telling me that I don't know anything about economics or Japan or macro. So I got a line on a ton of those people. Dana, if you ever want to DM me, and I can just send you their info.
I got you, bro. I hate you up. Anyway, cheers, guys. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
one, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Do you want to pay less in taxes and stack more Bitcoin? Of course you do. Well, by mining Bitcoin with Blockware, you can. Under Section 168K of the U.S. Tax Code, Bitcoin mining servers qualify for 100% bonus depreciation. This means every dollar you spend on miners, you can directly offset your income in a single year. And that's true for both business owners and W-2 earners. If you have $100,000 in ordinary income, you can purchase $100,000 of miners and potentially offset your tax liability entirely. Blockware's mining as a service does the heavy lifting. They secure the rigs, source low-cost power, and handle all the day-to-day maintenance. You stack Bitcoin every day while drastically shrinking your tax bill. Get started today at blockwaresolutions.com/debates. Again, that's blockwaresolution.com/debates. Arch Lending is building the most transparent borrowing experience in crypto. Get industry-leading rates from 8.49% APR, borrow against Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana, and receive USD or USDC within minutes. Your assets stay protected with qualified custody, no rehypothecation, and verifiable segregated addresses. As your collateral grows, unlock more liquidity, adjust your line anytime, and extend your term with a single click. And with 24/7 white glove support, you're never on your own. Arch Lending, simple tiers, public pricing, market-leading rates at every size. Check them out at archlending.com/debates. Again, it's archlending.com/debates. Use code debates to get 50 basis points off your APR on your crypto-backed loan today.